I remember the day I first heard about the Henderson house like it had happened yesterday, though it's been years since I actually stepped foot inside it. I was a kid, maybe 12 or 13, when the rumors first started circulating in our small town of Millfield. He said the house had been abandoned for decades, left to rot on the outskirts of town, and anyone who dared enter it came back different. Some whispered that it was haunted, others that it was cursed, and a few of the braver ones insisted they'd seen shadows moving inside the cracked windows late at night. Naturally, such stories fascinated me. I was drawn to the dark corners of the world, to the places people were too afraid to explore. Identitais besiuka. Identitais ghosts. Not really, but the way the townsfolk whispered about Henderson House made my blood run cold in the best possible way. I wanted to see it for myself. The house sat at the end of Willow Lane, a narrow dirt road that twisted through fields that had long since turned to overgrown meadows. The first time I approached it, the sun was already dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to reach for me as I walked. Its silhouette was unmistakable against the amber sky. A two-story structure with peeling white paint, broken shutters swinging in the wind, and a roof that sagged in places, as if the house itself were weary of standing. The front yard was choked with weeds and brambles, the remnants of a once pristine lawn overtaken by neglect. I felt a strange pull in my chest, a mixture of fear and exhilaration, and I couldn't turn back. The front door hung on one hinge, groaning as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay, and the faint smell of rot made me wrinkle my nose. Sunlight filtered through the holes in the roof, catching on broken furniture and splintered floorboards. Every step I took echoed through the cavernous rooms, a hollow sound that seemed to announce my presence to some unseen observer. As I explored, I noticed strange details, scuff marks along the walls where it looked like furniture had been dragged, scratches on the hardwood floor that weren't consistent with normal wear, and a strange pattern in the dust as if someone or something had been pacing. It was in the living room that I first felt it, the unmistakable sense that I was not alone. I had been alone 100 times in abandoned houses, yet this felt different. The air was heavier here, pressing against my chest, and the shadows seemed to twitch just beyond my vision. I convinced myself it was my imagination, just the thrill of being somewhere forbidden, and I moved on. But as I ascended the staircase to the second floor, the sensation intensified. Each creak of the old wood under my feet sounded like a warning. By the time I reached the top, I could feel a cold draft brushing against my neck, though every window on the floor was boarded or broken, letting in only stale, musty air. The hallway stretched before me, lined with closed doors that had never been opened in years. I chose one at random, the nearest to me, and pushed it open. Inside was a bedroom, the remnants of a life frozen in time. A rusted bed frame, a moth-eaten mattress, and a dresser with drawers hanging open. What caught my eye, however, was the mirror on the wall. Not just any mirror, but one that seemed to swallow the light around it. I approached cautiously, and as I stared into it, I saw nothing. My reflection stared back at me, pale and wide-eyed, but behind me, in the corner of the mirror, I thought I saw movement. I spun around, heart pounding, but the room was empty. That night, I went home with an uneasy feeling I couldn't shake. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, a mix of shadows and my imagination. But over the following weeks, strange things began to happen. I would see fleeting shadows out of the corner of my eye, feel cold drafts in rooms with no windows, and hear whispers when I was alone. At first, I dismissed it all. Small town life was boring enough to make anyone's imagination run wild, but the more I tried to ignore it, the more insistent these occurrences became. One evening, a month after my first visit, I found myself drawn back to the Henderson house. This time, I came prepared, with a flashlight, a camera, and a notebook. I had to know if the house was truly haunted or if I was losing my mind. As I stepped inside, the familiar creak of the door greeted me. The air was colder than before, biting at my skin, and the dust seemed to shimmer unnaturally in the beam of my flashlight. I moved carefully, my eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. It was then I heard it, the softest whisper, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. "Leave," it hissed. My blood ran cold. I shone my flashlight down the hallway, but no one was there. The whisper came again, louder this time, and I realized it wasn't coming from any one direction, it was all around me. Panic surged through me, but my curiosity outweighed my fear. I had to keep moving. Upstairs, the same room with the mirror beckoned me. As I stepped inside, the air grew unbearably cold, and my breath came out in visible puffs. The mirror reflected the room perfectly, except for the corner. In the corner, a figure had appeared. A man, or at least it looked like one at first. His eyes were hollow, black voids, and his skin seemed to shimmer unnaturally under the flashlight's beam. He didn't move, yet I felt his gaze burning into me. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to obey. The figure raised a hand, and the room went completely dark. The flashlight flickered and died. In the darkness, the whispers multiplied, a chorus of voices murmuring in tones both pleading and malicious. I could hear footsteps circling me, soft but deliberate, and then a cold hand gripped my shoulder. I screamed, stumbling backward, and when the light from my dying flashlight caught the corner again, the figure was gone. The mirror, however, remained, and in it, I saw not my reflection, but the room behind me, empty and decaying. I fled the house that night and didn't return for years, but the memory of that encounter stayed with me, haunting my dreams. I would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced I could hear the whispers and the footsteps. Eventually, I moved away from Millfield, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. It wasn't until my late 20s that I returned to Millfield. The house, as expected, had decayed further. Roof tiles had fallen in, windows were shattered, and the yard was completely overgrown. The town had grown around it, but the house remained an island of darkness. I had to know what had happened all those years ago. I had to confront it. I entered the house once more, older, cautious, and armed with more than just a flashlight. Safety in numbers this time. I brought a friend, someone skeptical, someone who could rationalize whatever we encountered. But skepticism doesn't protect you when a house is truly alive with malice. The hallway upstairs stretched before us like a dark tunnel, each step echoing ominously. The air was thick, suffocating. We reached the mirror room, and there it was again. The reflection twisted unnaturally, showing us not ourselves, but moments from our past we hadn't wanted to see. Shadows moved behind the figures in the reflection, creeping closer with every glance. My friend tried to laugh it off, but even he was pale, his voice tight. Then the whispers returned, louder, now almost deafening. "You shouldn't be here," they hissed, overlapping, 1,000 voices at once. The figure appeared again in the corner, more defined, more terrifying. This time I saw more than a hollow face. Its skin was cracked, rotting, and its mouth stretched into a grin that was impossibly wide. Its eyes burned like coals, staring directly at me. Panic overtook reason. We ran down the stairs, but the hallway seemed longer, twisting impossibly, doors where there were none before. The air was cold enough to burn, and shadows stretched and reached for us. I could hear it breathing, following, always just behind. We burst out of the front door into the overgrown yard. The night air never felt so sweet. But as we turned to look back, the house had changed. The broken roof seemed repaired, the windows intact, the lights inside flickering on as if welcoming us back, and I understood then that the house wasn't abandoned. It never had been. It waited, always, for those curious enough to enter, those who wouldn't heed the whispers. I left Millfield the next morning, convinced I would never return. Yet, at night, when I am alone, I swear I can feel the house watching me. Sometimes in the corner of my eye, in reflective surfaces, I see it. The windows lit, the shadowed figure standing silently. And the whispers, they never stop. They call me back, tell me the story isn't over, that it will never be over, that the house always wants more. Even now, writing this, I can feel a presence in the room with me. Something patient, waiting. Its breath on the back of my neck. And I know, without a doubt, that the Henderson house is not just a building. It is alive. It feeds on curiosity, on fear, on those foolish enough to think they can understand it. And one day, it will claim